my grandfather, who was a fisherman and for some years a hunter, and he was actually I think maybe the head of the Isaac Walton League, which is a fisherman's, it was called at the time, society nationally. And he was also a medical researcher. He was actually did some of the early work around the hazards of DDT and other chemicals in the environment, whether in agriculture or otherwise. And he was cited in Rachel Carson's Silent Spring. He was her main source on DDT issues. But I might not have been aware of that super early on because both my parents had similar mindset. I grew up on a very small chicken farm in the Caribbean. We just lived and respected nature and ate healthily, and that was just life. But at some point in the late 60s, I became keenly aware of the impact of industrialization and fossil fuels on the environment. And I made myself a promise that I wasn't able to keep, that I would never own an internal combustion automobile. At some point, reality overtook that. So I was certainly keenly aware of the impact that we were having on the environment, on nature, and on people. I guess growing up in a rural setting and then coming to the city and seeing the impact that cars had made a difference. I worked for a year in England and rode my bike to and from work every day, maybe 5 miles, and they could certainly get the tailpipe exhaust there. That might have had an impact on me. I don't think I thought of I'm not sure if I thought of riding a bike as being an environmental statement or just something that I enjoyed doing. But pretty much, so I've been biking since I was in my teens. Well, when I was younger, I just rode a bike around like a kid for fun, but I've been pretty much, whenever it was at all feasible, I either biked or walked to work throughout my work life. At some point, it became clear that was a healthy thing, not just for me, but for the environment. And I've always enjoyed gardening. My mother was a gardener, and my wife's a gardener, and I certainly do a good share of. She's the garden chief, but I certainly help out a lot there and enjoy it. And I'm the cook, and we, as we can, we eat our own produce. Freeze it. Haven't gotten to canning yet. Have some friends who do canning, but that's still on my bucket list to actually do some canning. I grew up on the island I was born in Pennsylvania, born near Philadelphia, but when I was 3, we moved to St. Croix. The idea was my father was in the Merchant Marine, and he wanted to get a little sailing vessel and make a living getting cargo here and there throughout the Caribbean, but the boat costs money, and bank's not going to loan you money for something could sink. So that never did happen. So, long story short, they ended up first working on and then borrowing to buy a small chicken farm, and that's where I grew up. And then I came back to Pennsylvania later, and then from Pennsylvania to California, and from California to Missouri, and from Missouri to Texas. Lived a good chunk of time in each of those places. My father never worked in any STEM field, but I guess he was gifted in math. And so from the time I was tiny, he was teaching me about math, and I enjoyed it. And happened to be in high school when the first terminals were coming out, and spent some time on one of those, taught myself some computer languages, got a job, my first full-time job in England for a year, working as a software developer there. I was drafted in the last year of the Vietnam War, and as a pacifist, I wasn't going to do that. I was fortunate to have my conscientious objector application accepted, so I got a job working at the Veterans Hospital in San Francisco in a sleep research lab. And the the head of that lab became a lifelong friend until he died a couple years ago. And so I pretty much stayed in computer programming, software development throughout my working life, with a few exceptions. Often part-time while I was spending more time and energy as an activist for peace and justice. But that was how I was working over those years. I'm not actually sure how I ran into Bill McKibben. It might have been through Catherine Hayhoe, who I'd been following for quite a while. But I kind of think that he'd been on my radar for years. And yes, I've been a supporter of 350s for some years. So probably got on Bill's Substack when he started it. Honestly, I don't remember. And saw references to Third Act.